Hello and welcome to Unofficial Experts, the 5th episode. We're almost done with season 1. I'm your host, Preston Moore, and today I'm joined by my good friend, Francesca. Francesca, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful. I'm super excited for today's show because we're going to talk all about something that I know a little bit about, but not a whole lot, not as much as you. We're going to talk about musical theater.
Yes. You will be an expert by the time this podcast is over.
By the time we finish, I will have absorbed enough
All of my
knowledge to
knowledge.
where I could be a guest on someone else's podcast.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. That's wonderful. We're going to talk about musical theater. So you explain to me like how you got into musical theater.
I was I have like 3 intro stories, I guess. Like they all happened around the same age, but when I was in kindergarten, I believe, is when my mom first started taking me to the musicals that my high school would put on. So like I've been going to those every year since I was in kindergarten. And then my aunt, my mom's sister, growing up always took me to see shows in Pittsburgh at the Benedum Center. It was always a Christmas gift and then a birthday gift every year. And then my other aunt, my dad's sister, when I was 5 or 6, bought me the DVD of NBC's Peter Pan starring Mary Martin. It's like from the 1960s. And if it was a VHS tape, I would have worn it out. Like I watched it so many times. I memorized absolutely every line, every voice inflection, like all the choreography. Like I was in that zone. And so basically since like kindergarten, I've been into musical theater massively.
I just imagine like little Francesca doing like a full out Peter Pan show.
Oh yeah.
Like
I was convinced that like
show.
one day I was going to fly. Yeah. One woman show. I played all the characters.
You might still fly. You never know.
That's true. You never know.
So you got into it when you were really little. You said you went to Pittsburgh a lot?
Yes.
Where?
2 to 3 times a year.
Gotcha. Where are you from, like in relation to Pittsburgh? Because I'm trying to get like some background, you know. So like, where was like your base, and how big of a deal was it to go to Pittsburgh?
I'm like a half hour away from the city, depending on exactly where you're going. But yeah, my mom would drop me off at my aunt's house, and then she lives like 15 minutes from like where we would go, like the Benedum Center in Pittsburgh. So it was always like a big like event. I would sleep over her house and we'd go to dinner, and like it was big. It was big for me because when I was super young, I knew what Broadway was, but to me like Pittsburgh was Broadway for me.
Yeah. There you had your own little Broadway.
Yeah, it was my little bubble. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. So speaking of Broadway, you've been a lot, I assume, because you're from like near there. Like I'm from Texas, go to school in Oklahoma, been to New York one time, and when I went it was amazing. But like I'm just not, I'm not close enough to where that's like something that I've done often. But I'm sure you've been more than once.
I have. I've been a total of 6 times. I've been to New York more than that, but I didn't go to my first Broadway show until I was a freshman in college. The fashion department goes to New York every other year. And so my freshman year was the summer that we went. And the faculty gave us like 3 shows to choose from. And my first show was Gigi. And I wanted to see it because Vanessa Hudgens was playing Gigi. And I was like, oh my God, I need to see Vanessa Hudgens in a Broadway show. So that was my first Broadway show. And then
what is because I don't know. I know like a total of like 6 musicals. So tell me what is Gigi?
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is a question like I knew I should have researched because I've seen it once. I didn't really know that much about it, but like a
All you know is that when you left, you'd seen Vanessa Hudgens.
basically, yeah, I had no information prior to the musical, what it was about. I just remember Vanessa Hudgens was the lead, Corey Cott was in it, and they sang songs about drinking champagne. They went to the beach, and it was set in the 1920s.
And that is all we need. That's it.
That's all. That's it.
That's all. I mean, you've sold me. Now I'm interested in
Right.
it. So I might be checking out
Really
Gigi
good
after
music.
this.
I love the music for it. It's great.
Gotcha. So what were the other shows that you saw?
I've seen Waitress, Mean Girls, Beetlejuice, Six, and Wicked.
Gotcha. I know a few of those. Which
Yeah.
out of those, which one is your favorite and why?
Okay, so if you would have asked me this question when I was in high school, I would have told you Wicked. But now, like after seeing all of them live, it's really hard decision, but I always go back to Waitress. Like my favorite show, like in the moment, can change from like Hamilton to Wicked to Mean Girls, Les Mis, whatever. But like my heart always goes back to Waitress. I love the story. I love the music. It's perfect.
What's Waitress about then?
Okay, this I can tell you.
Okay.
So it's about a waitress. This waitress is married. Her name is Jenna, and she's in an abusive relationship with her husband. And then she finds out that she's pregnant and starts having an affair with her gynecologist. I know it sounds very
Wow.
weird.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's a lot. That's a lot to take in.
Yeah, so she starts having an affair with her gynecologist, but he's also married. And in the end, spoiler alert, they do not end up together. He stays married to his wife. She has a baby. She becomes a very successful pie shop owner. And everyone lives happily ever after.
Wow. That's something. So didn't Sarah Bareilles like wrote that show or
Yes.
starred in it?
Yeah, she wrote the
right?
music.
I know that she was super involved.
She wrote the music for it, and then she starred in it like during like one of the the 6-month run on Broadway.
Gotcha. So were you able to see her or no?
No, the reason that I chose to see Waitress during the time I did, little backstory, the past 5 Broadway shows I've been to, I've gone with my best friend Tyler. That's like kind of our hobby to do together, if you will. So like we'll choose a show
hobby.
based, yeah. And a really expensive hobby. So we'll choose a show like based on a certain actor, actress that's in it that we like, or just because we like the show. So I had found out that an actor, his name's Eric Bergen, that he was going to be taking over the role of Dr. Pomander. So I texted Tyler and I was like, this is the deal. Do you want to go see Waitress with me? I'm coming to New York. This was like a week later. Like I bought the tickets. A week later, I left for New York to go see the show. And the girl who played Jenna was Shoshana Bean. I didn't realize, but I had seen her in a show in Pittsburgh that I saw. But yeah, those were the 2 leads that I saw when I saw Waitress.
Gotcha. That's really exciting. That's cool that you've got a friend who it's like, this is what we do. We go and we watch Broadway shows together, and that's our thing.
Yeah.
That's so fun. So you mentioned back in high school you really liked Wicked. Is there a reason for that? How involved were you in musical theater when you were in high school?
Performance-wise, I was only in 2 shows, but like as a hobby and a general interest, I was insanely involved in musical theater. I think like growing up, The Wizard of Oz was my all-time favorite movie, and it still is. And obviously Wicked is based off of The Wicked Witch of the West. Like it's like her backstory, prequel. And like that musical was just like on repeat nonstop. Like I loved the character of Elphaba and like how you kind of feel bad for her and maybe she's not really the villain. Like, all of the songs were amazing, and just like that was a character that I was like, if I'm ever on Broadway, this is a role that I want to play. And I have paper evidence of that.
Paper evidence.
I can show to the the YouTube viewers.
Okay, so if you're watching right now, definitely check out the YouTube video because I think that we're gonna get some exclusive content for the video. Let's see it.
I wrote this when I think it was my sophomore year of high school. I don't remember what the assignment was, but I wrote a 1.5 page paper on Wicked.
Wow.
And this last little snippet was, I can't stop singing and listening to the songs. One day I hope to see Wicked in New York on Broadway at the Gershwin Theater. Any chance I get, I will go see it. This coming Friday, I'm going back to the Benedum to see Wicked again, and I know it will be better than before. So that was the end, and 8 years later, I did finally see Wicked on Broadway.
Wow.
And
that's
then in this
full
part,
circle.
Right? This part in the middle, I wrote, although she is evil, Elphaba is my favorite character, and I hope to play her someday on stage. So,
She said,
pay no attention to my grammar mistakes. Sometimes the villains are like the more interesting characters.
I agree with that. I was involved in musical theater somewhat, just a little. I dabbled in high school. And it was the absolute pleasure to play Gaston in Beauty and the Beast. And that was like the coolest thing. And I just remember whenever, it was the first rehearsal that we had, or not the first rehearsal overall, but it was the first time we were rehearsing the final fight scene where Gaston he's like stabbing the beast, like he's going crazy, and he's like being super scary, like all out, like saying like, how did you think that Belle could ever love someone like you when they could have me, and all this, like the lines are just like so mean and awful. But I don't remember what it was, but I tapped into something then, and we had a ton of extras, like at least 40 to 50 extras in our show, like ensemble characters who were little kids basically. So we're rehearsing that scene, and I didn't have any costume or anything because it was the first time we'd done it, and I was just like wearing a t-shirt just like Preston, but I went full evil Gaston mode. And I just remember like finishing the scene, and all of the little kids were like sitting there just watching after I just like stabbed this guy and then just like yelled at him in this big, deep, like booming Gaston voice as mean as I could. And I just remember looking over, and all the kids were like, oh my God. They were terrified of me. They wouldn't talk to me for the rest of the day.
Poor things.
Like the whole rest
you
of the...
You scarred them from the rest of their theater career.
I did. And I love kids. Like, I'm good with kids. I adore them. But I couldn't, after they saw me like that, it was like, that was it. They were like, oh my goodness. They were like, that was really scary. And even the director was like, wow, Preston. I was like, I don't know. I was just doing
Save some of that for the show.
Yeah, that's literally what it was. You said you were in 2 shows in high school. What 2 were they?
So my freshman year, I was too scared to audition. I have really bad stage fright, so that is like my main roadblock. Then sophomore year, I was convinced, and we did Seussical, and I don't like to talk about it because that musical kind of like scarred me for life.
Oh, you don't like Seussical?
I am like not really a big Dr. Seuss fan. Sorry to all you Dr. Seuss fans out there. But no, like it was good. Like the show was good. And because it was like such a lively, fun show, like being in it with all my friends was great. But I didn't have that big of a part. I was a zebra in the circus, and I was in 2 songs. I didn't come on till act 2. So I just like vibed backstage. Like my one friend and I, we just like ate Pop-Tarts the whole time during the first act. And then junior year, I auditioned for the musical. We did curtains, and I got cast as the saloon girl. But junior year, I was like super stressed about my grades and like applying to college and stuff like that, that I ended up having to drop out. And then senior year was like peak, like full circle moment for me, because we did Peter Pan. And I remember being at voice lessons one day, and Brenda, my voice coach, was like, are you going to audition for the musical? And I was like, I really want to, but like, I am so scared of doing improv. Like, it's one of the things that I hate the most about theater. And I just didn't want to like be subject to that embarrassment of being put on the spot. And she was like, listen, you're gonna audition for this musical, and anytime the director says that we're doing improv, come hang out with me in the orchestra pit or go to the bathroom and I'll cover for you. And I was like, okay, I'm sold. So so I was like, I'll do it. Yeah. And I auditioned and I was a lost boy. And ironically, when I was growing up, there was one lost boy from the show the DVD I had that I had a crush on. Ironically, that was the one that I ended up playing.
Oh, that's so funny, but also kind of weird.
Yeah, right. And like my best friend who I did musicals with was also a lost boy, and like there was like 5 of us, and we just like had the best time bonding. And we were all girls except for one, so just like a bunch of girls playing guys, like bonding. And
the lost girls.
The lost girls, yeah. And it was the most fun I've ever had doing a show. So it was nice that like a show that got me into musical theater was also like the end of my high school theater career. It was a very emotional time.
Yeah, that's really, I love that. I love that a lot. It's funny you mentioned Seussical, because I know you said you didn't like it. However, it is one of the few shows that I know. And that's because it was actually fair. It was the first show that I ever saw. When I was 5, my mom took me to go see Seussical, and I remember like watching it, and I was like, I mean, 5 years old is like, who's anything at that point in your life? But I was a very sporty kid, you know, like, and I was on track to be a very sporty kid, and I ended up a sporty kid. But at the time, I remember just seeing it, and I was like, this is the first time I'd seen anything like this. And I was just wowed by it. Like, I thought it was the coolest thing. And the song, my mom actually brought this up, I don't know, a couple months ago at one point. But apparently for like the 2 or 3 days after I saw the show, I would not listen to anything else other than the song Monkey Around with the Wickersham Brothers. Like that was it.
No.
That was
out of all the songs you could choose?
I was 5 years old and I thought it was cool. I thought it was fun. I really liked it. Nowadays, when I listen to Seussical, I don't always listen to that song, but I have an emotional connection to Seussical because it was the first one that I ever saw. But I understand if you're not the biggest Dr. Seuss fan, it's fine. No. We can just
nothing against Dr. Seuss, but it's not my vibe.
Not your cup of tea. But have you seen, I'm going to deviate for just a little bit because we can't talk about Dr. Seuss and not bring this up.
I know what you're going to ask me.
Have you seen the 2003 film The Cat in the Hat starring Mike Myers?
Yes, of course.
It's a masterpiece.
I think when I was younger, I was like, okay, like this is a movie. It's about the Cat in the Hat, like whatever. And then it was on a couple years ago one night, and I was like, I'm gonna watch it. Like I haven't seen it in so long, and I was like, what? Like, how have I gone this long without like rewatching the movie?
Safe to say, Seussical Cat in the Hat and Cat in the Hat from the movie are a little bit different.
Insanely different.
Just a little bit. I'm still waiting on a sequel, but it's fine.
I don't think we're going to get one.
Probably not. Maybe they could make a musical of The Cat in the Hat. None of the other like characters. Just
you might be onto something. Mm-hmm.
Maybe. Either way, though, you wouldn't like it because Dr. Seuss.
I wouldn't like it.
Well,
I did like the movie Horton Hears a Who, though. So
that's a cute movie. Cute movie. Yeah. So, going back to, what we're supposed to be talking about, you have been, we talked about Broadway a lot. Have you ever, met any, because I know that they do like I can't remember what it is. Whenever I was a theater kid, I knew what it was, but they do like a back door thing where you can wait by the back door of the theater and meet.
Yeah, stage door.
Okay, tell me about that. Have you done it? Have you met anyone? What is it?
I have.
Because I don't remember.
So when the show is over, like Tyler and I are so used to doing this that like we get to a show early and we scope out where the stage door is so that when the show ends, we bolt there. Like that's our end game. So for my first show, we're waiting outside a stage door, and like Vanessa Hudgens is Vanessa Hudgens. Like she's got other stuff to do, you know?
Yeah.
So we didn't really know if she was going to come out. And then all of a sudden, like people started screaming, and I turn around and she's right there in front of me. And I was like, all of my High School Musical memories came flooding back to me.
It's Gabriella.
Literally. And I'm sitting there and I was like, oh my God, like be cool, be cool, be cool. And she came over to us and she was so sweet. And she took my phone, like took a photo of like me and the friends I was there with. And she talked to us for like a couple minutes. And then at Wicked, we're standing outside of stage door, and I didn't realize it until we got there that the guy who played Bertram and Jesse was in the show. And I turn and he's like coming out of the stage door, and I was like, oh my God, it's Bertram. Like
it's the butler, the big butler.
It's the butler. Like,
yeah.
So I was like, I don't know why, I was too scared to ask him for a photo, but he signed my playbill.
Ah. You missed out on an opportunity to get a photo with the butler from Jessie.
I did. It's one of my biggest regrets.
Do you know how many times in your life you're going to have that opportunity?
0. Unless I see him on a Broadway show. I know. And then Ryan McCartan was in the show, and that was why I wanted to go see it, because of Ryan McCartan and Jessica Vosk. She was playing Elphaba. And I didn't get to meet Ryan that night after the show, but then the next night I was walking and he was coming out of a sandwich shop, and I was like, so I stopped him on the street and I was like, I'm so sorry to bother you, but like I saw you in Wicked last night. I didn't get to meet you at stage door, but like this is very serendipitous. Like, can we get a photo? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So we were like talking on the street for like 2 minutes, and my friends were across the street and they were like videotaping the whole thing and like zooming in on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then let me think. Oh, for Waitress, we waited outside of stage door, and I was able to get a picture with Eric and a picture with Shoshana. And for Mean Girls, my main reason of going was because Renee Rapp took over the role of Regina. I mean, I of course wanted to see the musical no matter what, but I was so excited that Renee was playing Regina. And I had taken voice lessons like in junior high and then throughout high school. But when I went to college, I obviously like moved away for college, so I had to stop. And when I sort of discovered who Renee was and like listening to her voice, I was like, I need to go back and just like start taking lessons again. I just want to sing. So when she came out of stage door, I told her, I was like, listen, like I found out you were playing Regina, and I listened to like all of your stuff, and like you inspired me to go back to my voice lessons again. And she was so excited, and we took a photo, and she was so sweet, and like I was completely starstruck. Like she's 4 years younger than me, and I was like, oh my God, like you are God to me right now.
Yeah, I really like that though. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I definitely think, for me at least, music and singing, because I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where like in high school I was so into it, and I was going to voice lessons every single week and really trying to like perfect that craft. And then I moved away for college and stopped, because I wasn't I wasn't doing shows anymore. I wasn't studying theater. I had complete other things that I was working on now, and I was living somewhere completely different, so I kind of stopped. Never went back though. I think it's cool that you did. But for me, I think music still to this day, for me, like singing and performing is a very personal thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like it's where I draw a lot of, or not draw, but I can kind of express emotions that way. Even if I just take like an hour and a half long drive in my car and just sing and belt out any song, where I know no one can hear me. I do that a lot, like almost every couple days. So like, I think it's a very like, I don't know. It's something really personal to me, just to be able to perform and to sing. Like that's really special. And I love that you had that experience where you left and then you heard her and you were like, I have to come back. This is something I need to be doing.
Yeah. Like she posts a lot of like snippets of herself singing on Instagram, and now she does it on TikTok. And I just remember this clip of her. I don't remember where she was performing, but it was like a 30-second clip of her singing Somebody to Love by Queen. And that's one of my favorite Queen songs. Like, I love Queen. And I heard it and I was like, I want to sound like this. Like, I want like the control that she has in her voice, and like everything about her voice is just phenomenal. Like, I can't think of enough adjectives to describe it. Like, it's something you have to just listen to.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm determined to like focus and hone in on something that I'm really passionate about. But like, my biggest obstacle is that I don't like when people can hear me. So it's either I'm in the car, I'm in the shower. And when I started in 7th grade, I always had to have the door closed at lessons. Like, only Brenda could hear me sing. And then the one day I was like, after high school, I'd come home from like a break from college, and I went back and I left the door open, and she was so shocked that like I had grown and like my confidence. She was like, I can't believe you're leaving the door open. And I was like, I just want to try it for today. Like, see what happens. Like, we'll just take it and go from here.
Yeah. I love that. I'm similar in the same way. I didn't really learn how to sing, like technically, until high school. And when I got the role of Gaston, that was the first time I'd ever sang in front of anyone. I was not part of choir. I wasn't, I'd had roles in musicals before, but they were only speaking roles. So like whenever I got Gaston, I mean, he's got multiple songs in that show where he just really lets it all out.
Yeah.
And I remember almost everyone's reaction when they saw the show was just like, you did not tell me that you could do that. Like, and I was like, first of all, I didn't know until I trained for 2 years leading up to it. But second of all, I didn't want you to know. Like, I was keeping it a secret. Yeah. I don't want anyone else to hear me.
It's very like vulnerable.
You know?
Like,
yeah,
I feel
absolutely.
very vulnerable when I'm doing it, and it's like I don't trust anyone to like hear me necessarily. I think the only one time like vividly I remember is it was when I was doing the Disney College program, and I was in the shower and I didn't realize my roommate had come home, and she was in our room, and she comes and I come out of the shower and she was like, that was so pretty. And I was like, oh my God, like, you've been here the whole time.
No.
I was singing
Thank
Hamilton,
you, but stop. Oh, okay. Well, you know, whatever. It's forgiven. You're like, okay, well, that's fine. You can hear that. Yeah. So, speaking of Hamilton, we have a little bit of time left. So I want to try and get to it. Hamilton for me was kind of a gateway show. It got me into a lot of other things because it brings in hip hop and history and all these things that are typically not a part of musical theater, and it merges them all together. And that's what got me into it, is because I was interested in these other things. So if you were giving advice, if you had to give maybe 1 or 2 or 3 shows maybe to someone who's never listened to musical theater but kind of thinks they want to try it out, what would you give them?
Definitely Hamilton. Hamilton would be a top because, like you said, it's a gateway into musical theater. Like, it's not typical. I think the biggest thing when people think of musical theater and they're like, oh, I don't like this, is because they think of like the older shows like Phantom of the Opera, Cats, Les Mis, like things that are exactly the musical theater definition. Like, there's opera, like different stuff like that. But yeah, Hamilton would be number 1 because it does combine so many genres of music. I think Mean Girls would be another one, only because you have such a wide variety of people who love the movie, and the movie or the musical takes lines directly from the movie, ties them into songs.
Yeah, and a lot of people would resonate with that.
Yeah, it has a lot of like rock pop vibes to it that people don't expect from musical theater. And I think Beetlejuice would be a third choice because, like Mean Girls, it takes a lot from the original source material when it comes to writing song lyrics and the dialogue in the show. And even like, I know you said listen to the musical, but just like the scenery of everything, like when you're watching the show, like you 100% feel like you are in that movie. Like that giant sandworm snake thing. Like there's a life-size one on stage. Like it's insane. So yeah, I think those would be my top 3 shows for people who are trying to get into musical theater. And then you kind of just like work your way through things like
find what you like.
Yeah, like Catch Me If You Can, Hairspray. I think I would recommend things that people would know from their movies. Like obviously Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio. Like
Spider-Man,
most people don't know that's
Off the Dark.
a musical. No.
I've never listened to that or know anything about it. I just know that it exists.
That show is
funny.
So cursed. Like anything that
funny.
could go wrong with that show went wrong.
I love that. Well, and on that note, we're out of time. But this has been a lot of fun. Francesca,
thank
would
you
you
for
like
having
to
me.
give a parting goodbye of 10-15 seconds?
Save the arts. Wear a mask because I want to see Broadway shows again. And that's it. Thank you for having me.
Save the arts and wear a mask. Period.
Yeah.
Good. I'm about it. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode of Unofficial Experts, make sure to drop a like or a 5-star review wherever you may be listening. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at Unofficial Experts and on Twitter at UnofficialXPod. Unofficial Experts is presented by the Deconstructed Podcast Network, deconstructing today's world from a young perspective. Make sure to check out the other 2 shows under the DPN banner, the Disney Deconstructed Podcast, and Maybe You Should Care. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next week for the season finale to talk about Disney parks. It's going to be probably a long episode next week. I think we may do an extra 30 minutes tacked on the end. We might do an hour-long one. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But it's going to be super duper fun. Thank you all for listening, and we will see you next week. Thanks.